Okay, but how excited were you when you saw this pop up on your feed this morning? Or like when you saw the thumbnail? Come like we're doing it, guys. Come on. Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the channel, everyone. Welcome to Just JP. Hope you're having an absolutely beautiful morning, especially if you're watching this on the release date, the release morning. It's Christmas morning. And I thought all for the past 2 months, what can I do on Christmas Day that would probably excite most people? What can I surprise them with? Because I didn't tell anyone I was doing this. Well, we are doing none other than the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. This album has been asked for the longest time. It has been so requested. I was gifted the actual record, which I've already preloaded here on the player. And I hope that you guys are just excited to go ahead and listen to it with me. We're going to take this one in stride. We're gonna dive deep into this one. So I just really hope that you guys are looking forward to it. I don't even know where to put the album cover for it now. We'll just pop it back here for the moment before we kind of get started with things here. It's not balancing. That's close. That'll do for right now, for this exact moment. So yeah, this is their 8th studio album, released May 26, 1967. We've covered a few Beatles albums, but we have not covered this one. And I am really, really excited to listen to this one alongside you guys. And I really hope that you are as well, because like I said, this is my Christmas. Besides, this month I did a bunch of albums, bunch of stuff, but this is I don't know, I was hoping that you guys would really, really enjoy this one. So I hope that you're looking forward to it. So I'm going to do this album side by side. What I may do, honestly, I have no idea what I'm going to do right now at this point. What I may do is record both sides just at slightly separate times. I'm probably going to listen to side one tonight. Well, I know what I'm doing. I'm listening to side one tonight, and then I'm going to listen to side two tomorrow. I'll either just upload them as 2 separate long videos, by each side, or I'll just smash them together and put them as one long video. Honestly, I don't really know at the moment what I'm going to do, but we'll kind of decide that. I mean, you'll know what's going on because by this point, you'll see it in the title. Anyways, Sgt. Pepper's. So there's a few things we probably got to go over before we get into it. We're listening to the first side today, which is the first 7 songs here. Now, looking at the song titles, the only 2 tracks I know, looking at the track list, is Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds and then A Day in the Life. So Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is actually, when I thought about it, that is the first ever Beatles song that I heard way before the channel. This is when I was in high school, and one of my substitute teachers put on a documentary just about the history of popular music. And I remember hearing Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds with that chorus, and I heard that and I was like, ooh, I really like that. So that was actually my first exposure to the Beatles from my substitute teacher in, was it history class or English class? It was one of the classes. I don't know. Anyways, we'll probably go through. We'll probably stop each track after it's done to go ahead and talk about it. I'll give you, of course, my normal thoughts. Most of you have been here before, but if you're not, or if you haven't been here before, I hope that you enjoy this album, listen to me, or with me. Now, as you already know, this will be edited on YouTube, and the full reaction will be on Patreon. You can click the link below, go directly there and watch the whole thing there. You do not have to sign up. You do not have to pay anything. No matter who you are, whether you're subscribed or not, whether you've been here or not. Just go there if you want to watch the full thing with all the music. But of course, if you have enjoyed my channel, if you have enjoyed all the reactions, if you've had a good time here and you're able to and you want to, you're more than welcome to support what I do, to support my reactions for as little as $2 a month over there. Which absolutely helps me a ton over on this end. Also, you can check out my my little hobby channel I started, According to AI, where I'm just messing around with AI and for example, I've done a bunch of album covers from Yes, from King Crimson, where I do the original album cover, and then I put it through the AI to see what results from that. So it's just a cool little fun experiment I'm kind of doing. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed the video. If anything, please share the video. If anything. On your social media and all that stuff, but really I hope that you're having a wonderful Christmas morning. This is, like I said, my gift to you guys, and I hope that you guys enjoy the gift. I hope I enjoy the gift. Right, so like I said, I got it loaded up here already. we're going to go ahead and get into the first track here, which is the title track, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Now, I'll probably dive in depth on this one a little bit because there are so many articles and paragraphs, and there's a lot of reading into what, of course, made this album. So we're probably going to read a little bit of that as we go forward into the album. But for now, let's start with side one, the first track. Thank you for being here. Hope I didn't talk too much. But for now, let's start off with the title track. Let's get this popping on that end. We'll close that down. Do I have it on the right side? Okay, had to make sure. Let's go, guys. Hope you enjoy. That's awesome. Nice live atmosphere here. Okay, hold on. We have to stop it somewhere, right? We have to stop it somewhere because I gotta talk. there's already a lot to talk about. Those two tracks just went together. And I didn't know exactly when it was going to stop, so I said, let's just go. We can cover the two at once. The first track immediately impresses upon me that that live recording, that live concert kind of feel. You hear the crowd cheering. I love the horns that are coming in here. And it really feels like a marching band, but they have a blues, purely rock and roll feel in the track there. That's really cool. Really enjoy that. So it immediately kind of pulls you into the album. And then we kind of lighten and soften things up, but with a little help from my friends, is extremely melodious McCartney's bass line, especially in that opening kind of break in the track. Love the harmonies from the band. Like, it's so catchy. Immediately, it's starting off extremely strong already in just the first two tracks. Like, it's a really, really good time. Now, I just want to kind of go over some of the notes. And like I said, there are so many articles about the songs, the band at this point, their inspiration. We got to talk about the album cover here, which is really interesting. Now, if you saw, I was holding this up. In this, they actually have like outlines of every character on the cover, and then it actually tells you who they are. So we'll kind of look at that in a little bit. There's another booklet in there. Like, we're going to spend some time, is what I'm saying on this one. So talking about the opening track, the title track, it's written by McCartney. The song appears twice on the album. I guess there's a reprise later on at the end. And I guess that technically this is a concept album in a sense. So the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is like a fictional band that the Beatles made up. I actually have it right here. I'm going to kind of read this because this is a good little blurb. I hope that you're here to learn and listen. Having given up touring after Candlestick Park, we decided we would try to make our next record something special. As I was flying back from a visit to America, Mal Evans, our big friendly bear of a roadie, and I were having an in-flight meal. He asked me to pass the salt and pepper, and I misheard it as Sgt. Pepper. It's kind of funny, actually. Happy accidents, right? This set off a train of thought that ended up in me writing a song for a fictitious band who would be called Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and would be the alter ego of the Beatles. Which is really cool to take, your band, of course, and then change, in a sense, not change it, but make up a fictional band made up of your band. And in a sense, this allows you to perhaps explore other avenues, which I think is just cool how they did that. When I got back, I suggested this idea to the other guys. This would free us from our normal Beatles thinking and allow us a more adventurous approach. That's really cool. I did a couple sketches of how the band might look. It was quite liberating. And of course, we have the final product there of them all in their get-ups and their very colorful, very vibrant marching band colors. It says, when we were done, I took my sketches and our ideas to a friend of mine in a London gallery. He suggested we take the ideas to Peter Blake, etc., etc. And then they start talking about the actual album cover here. Which, if I'm just looking like very briefly at the outlines here and just looking for names that I'm familiar with, you have Edgar Allan Poe in here, Aleister Crowley, Bob Dylan's over there, Dylan Thomas, Oliver Hardy, Karl Marx, The Petty Girl, Marlon Brando, Oscar Wilde, David Livingston. There's a lot of names here, and I guess this is, in a sense, all their inspirations or different figures that they've been inspired from throughout their career. Shirley Temple's in here, or I guess also just people that they wanted to draw attention to, give some sort of honor to as well. I'm trying to see exactly where here in these paragraphs they say why they chose all these people. But I don't see it at this exact moment here. I think I can probably find it quicker on Wikipedia here. Instead of reading through packaging, front cover, there you go. It says that it features a collage featuring the Beatles in costumes, standing with life-size cardboard cutouts of famous people. But I want to know why they chose these people exactly. I want to hear from them themselves. The final grouping included blah blah blah, Stockenhausen and Carol. Fearing okay, this is interesting. This is interesting. I just saw this right now. Fearing controversy, EMI rejected Lennon's request for images of Adolf Hitler and Jesus Christ. Well, that's interesting. When McCartney was asked why the Beatles did not include Elvis Presley among the musical artists, he replied, "Elvis was too important and too far above the rest to even mention." That is, but I want to know, why did he want to include? Why did he want to include them? The cover collage features 57 photographs, 9 waxworks. It's a guidebook to the cultural topography of the decade that conveyed increasing democratization of society whereby traditional barriers between high and low culture were being eroded. I don't know, dude. I just think it's a really cool album cover. And like I said, the song is really good too. Let me go back to that article about the song itself so that we can kind of, like I said, get into each of the tracks a little bit more in depth, to kind of see where the band was and what they were thinking when they created each of the tracks here. So we are to discuss the idea of the actual album here on the album. And actually, there's not a ton more extra on this one specifically that I see, for the opening track at least. And getting into with a little bit of help from my friends, like I said, this one is just an extremely harmonious, melodic, like follow-up track. Like the opening was a sizzler, a nice rock and roll track. Love the live audience atmosphere, and then moving into this, it's like just got that nice harmonious swing to it. It says that this song is specifically actually sung by Ringo Starr, which, by the way, I love his drumming in the first track, which was really, really nice. It says that it was a top single as well, and it was finished in mid-1967. McCartney said it was pretty much co-written, John and I doing a work song for Ringo, a little craft job. Lennon and McCartney deliberately wrote a tune with a limited range, except for the last note, which McCartney worked closely with Starr to achieve. I like that they're helping each other in this as well. Starr explained that he insisted on changing the first line, which was originally, "What would you think if I sang out of tune? Would you throw ripe tomatoes at me?" A little breaking the fourth wall there, so that fans would not throw tomatoes at him. That's actually really funny. That there. So let's actually get into the lyrics, which we haven't as of yet. Going back to the first track of the album first. It was 20 years ago today when Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play. They've been going in and out of style, but they're guaranteed to raise a smile. So may I introduce you, the act you've known for all these years, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. We're the band. We hope you will enjoy the show. Sit back and let the evening go. It's wonderful to be here. It's certainly a thrill. You're such a lovely audience. We'd like to take you home with us. We'd like to take you home. I don't really want to stop the show, but I thought you might like to know that the singer's going to sing a song. And he wants you all to sing along. So let me introduce to you the one and only Billy Shears. Which I'm just imagining Billy Shears is the alter ego for Ringo Starr, since he's the one that sings lead in the follow-up track coming up. But I do think it's interesting how they're introducing this fictitious band, but at the same time they're introducing themselves. And I like how they say, just sit back and relax. We're going to play you some tunes. It's going to be a good time. We're going to have a good time. You're going to have a good time. Everyone's going to have a great time. And then getting into, with a little help from my friends, what would you think if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song, and I'll try not to sing out of key. Once again, really, really fourth wall breaking. Ringo's just like, hey, don't leave. I'm going to try my best. If you hear a crack in the voice, if you hear just a little something, we'll just keep going. And then he says, oh, I get by with a little help from my friends, which he repeats in the chorus, which makes sense because if he's not confident as a singer, he's being backed up by Lennon and McCartney, who are going to help him out. And like I said, they do help him out in the harmonies there in the track. What do I do when my love is away? Does it worry you to be alone? How do I feel by the end of the day? Are you sad because you're on your own? Would you believe in a love at first sight? Yes, I'm certain it happens all the time. What do you see when you turn out the light? I can't tell you, but I know it's mine. Because literally, when you turn out the light, you don't know what you see. But you have the confidence that what is in the dark is at least mine. So I like this song a lot, especially how he says with a little help from my friends, which makes a lot of sense within the actual like story, the characterization, the fictional band. It makes a lot of sense in this one. And looking on Wikipedia for this specific track, it says the Beatles began recording this song 1967, the day before they posed for the album cover. They recorded 10 takes of the song, wrapping up sessions around 5:45 in the morning. That's a late night. The following day, they added tambourine, backing vocals, bass, and more electric guitar. And McCartney's bass is really nice in here, especially, like I said, in that little break before the chorus there. That's good. That's pretty good. That's a strong start. Hey, let's continue on here. We're going to move ourselves into the next track, which is going to be the one, the only, Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds. Let's put this bad boy back down. We'll get into it. So psychedelic. I love that jump start into this chorus.
Turnstile, the girl with kaleidoscope eyes.
Oh, you heard the organ coming up there in the end? That was kind of interesting. I heard the organ. He goes, like, it was starting to kind of roar a little bit there. All right, so like I said, Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds is the first Beatles song that I ever heard that I can think of in my mind in high school. So this is a song I heard already. But to me, it is just the perfect track. It is the perfect psychedelic rock track from beginning to end. I love how different the chorus and the verse are. And I like how after the chorus, which is just so high, right? And then the pictures. Like, it so wonderfully cascades off of that high and just drops us, like I said during the song, it just peters out and drops us right back into the gelatinous fluidity of the verse, which is just like so gently swinging. Like, I mean, it's hypnotic. It's the epitome of a hypnotic track here on. Like, I love that. And then the guitar, I want to say that there's organ in the back too as well. During the verse specifically, there definitely is in the chorus. But it just like slowly sparkles along. Dun, 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 dun. It's a hypnotic melody that just integrates itself into your mind. It's very, very psychedelic. I think that I haven't listened to the album, but it's definitely one of the Beatles' strongest songs. You know, at least out of the ones that I've heard from them. It's insanely catchy. They get a lot done in it's probably a 3-minute track or so. 3 minutes, 28 seconds. There's a lot done. And unlike the two choruses when, it peters out and drops down, the final chorus just continues on into the fade out, of course, and continues that kind of, that ecstasy that the rest of the track has drawn before. And the singing is really nice as well. There's an effect on this singing. I'm not sure what it is, but we've heard it before. But it's used a lot of psychedelic music and other types where the singing is like filtered through some sort of device. We're going to look into it to see exactly what's going on. But I do think that that's also really cool. It's just it's a perfect song, no matter the genre, but it's a perfect psychedelic song. Probably one of the best, if not the best. Picture yourself in a boat on the river with tangerine trees and marmalade skies. Somebody calls you, you answer quite slowly. A girl with kaleidoscope eyes. Can I tell you, we're tripping. We're tripping. Cellophane flowers of yellow and green towering over your head. Look for the girl with the sun in her eyes, and she's gone. This is one of those songs, I can tell you already. This is one of those songs that you can pull out so many rabbits out of the hat. You can pull out so many different meanings that it's like, yeah, it's worth getting what the band intended, but, there's so many meanings you can get out of this that it's almost not even worth trying. Follow her down a bridge by a fountain where rocking horse people eat marshmallow pies. Everyone smiles as you drift past the flowers that grow so incredibly high. I like how this journey is so perfectly stated. There's a place, there's destination, there's movement, there's a journey and an adventure. It's very like Alice in Wonderland, basically, right? It's so psychedelic, it's twisted, it's abstract. Picture yourself on a train in a station with plasticine porters with looking glass ties. Suddenly, someone is there at the turnstile, the girl with kaleidoscope eyes, the girl that we had seen in the beginning. And I like the idea of kaleidoscope eyes. It's just so interesting. Now, looking at the article for this track, it says Lennon's son Julian inspired the song with a nursery school drawing that he called Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Shortly after the album's release, speculation arose that the first letter of each of the nouns in the title intentionally spelled LSD. I don't think I've ever known that before, but that makes sense. Lennon reportedly denied that he had intended it as a drug song and attributed the song's fantastical imagery to his reading of Alice in Wonderland. There you go. They recorded this track in 1967. The musical arrangement included a Lowry organ, heavily treated with studio effects, and a drone provided by the Indian tambura. I'll have to listen to that again. I guess it's one of those sounds I noticed, but I didn't really notice because with the Beatles, there's so much that goes into their music that you don't even always notice the smaller details, Looking at some of the information for this track, it says the recording began with rehearsals in Studio 2 of Abbey Road. The instrumental backing was finished the following evening. On the first take, track 1 of the 4-track tape contained acoustic guitar, piano, track 2, the organ, track 3, the drums, track 4, a vocal guide by Lennon for those. I'm curious about this LSD though. I mean, it is kind of trippy. McCartney gave 2 interviews in June, admitting he had taken the drug. Lennon later said he was surprised that the idea of the title was hidden. He was surprised at the idea the title was a hidden reference to LSD, countering that the song wasn't about that at all, and it was purely unconscious that it came out to be LSD. It does look. I mean, it is interesting that such a psychedelic song just accidentally kind of spells out those words when you think about it. McCartney confirmed Lennon's claim when he said, "When you write a song and you mean it one way, and someone comes up and says something about it you didn't think of, you can't deny it." Like Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds. People came up and said cunningly, "Right, I get it, LSD." And it was when the newspapers were talking about LSD, even though we never thought about it. I think that's really funny just how that came about there. But, I mean, what else is there to say about this track? It's a classic track from the Beatles. Let's move on into the next track here on the album, which is going to be Getting Better. And I hope that you guys are, I don't want to say getting better, because I hope you're well in the first place. But let's just move on to the next track here. Let's go. With that finish out.
It's getting better all the time. I used to get mad at my school. It's getting better. It's getting better since you've been mine.
That's that treated piano again. How upbeat and cheerful was that track? I love the idea. Get better. The harmonies. God, guys, did you hear them? Better, better. Like, the layering in those harmonies is incredibly strong. So pleasing. Like, it's a perfect... It's George Harrison, Lennon, and McCartney. Like, McCartney, I don't think I said the muck. But the way that they're layering on top of each other is just the most delicious, melodic cake. Like, layer cake. That's what I'm getting at. I really enjoy the percussion there as well. Because it sounds like Ringo is like... when the drums come in, not, ignoring like the light percussion in the back. But when the drums come in, it's like he hits the bass, opens the hi-hat, hits the snare, but he does it all very separately, which I thought was really cool. In between all of that, and given that space, that's when we're really filling out with that percussion. which you really hear at the end of the track here. And then you have that droning sound we're coming back from Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds that we mentioned, which was it a tambura, I think? I think that's what the instrument was, the tambura. But it came only in that midsection there, just for a brief moment, and then everything cleared up again. Those cloudy skies were gone, and we get back into the sunny side of that chorus, which is just incredibly, incredibly catchy, and like I said, very, very bright. I love that. It feels so good just listening to that. It says that this song, hold on, this song has been said to be musically reminiscent of the Beatles' hit single Penny Lane, which we listened to. McCartney's bass line in counterpoint to this droning was described by music critic Ian MacDonald as dreamy and well thought out as part of the production, which, yes, I've mentioned it before and I'll probably mention it again later, but McCartney's not only his singing, but his bass playing, as I've always mentioned, is just tasty. And I also kind of mentioned Ringo Starr in this track, but I think that sometimes he's a little bit underrated. He may not be the most overly technical drummer or flashy drummer, which is actually a strength, I think. He plays so well towards the song. He has his own pocket of creativity in how he approaches the groove, which I think is such a big part of the Beatles sound. And yes, on one hand, that's obvious, but on the other hand, I still think that that's a little bit underrated in just how much of a powerhouse he was within the pocket, but still extremely creative to the structure and the actual rhythm of the track, you know? Especially, I think, it comes out in this song very well. It says, one of the recording sessions for Getting Better is infamous for an incident involving Lennon. George Martin added a piano solo to Lovely Rita. Lennon complained that he did not feel well and could not focus. He had accidentally taken LSD when he meant to take an upper. Unaware of the mistake, Martin took him up to the roof of the studios for some fresh air and returned to Studio 2 where McCartney and Harrison were waiting. They knew why Lennon was not well, and upon hearing where Lennon was, rushed to the roof to retrieve him and prevent a possible accident. Yeah, because that could have been a very, very big accident in waiting, had they not gone up and gotten him. So good on them for being aware of where their friend and bandmate was, and actually taking the initiative to do something about it, because that could have been an untimely, unfortunate event. Let's get into these lyrics here. It's getting better all the time. I used to get mad at my school, and I love the singing in the verse, the back and forth. It's so good. The teachers who taught me weren't cool. You're holding me down, turning me round, filling me up with your rules. And then Lennon and Harrison are singing on the side of that. No, I can't complain. Fool, you fool. I just love their back and forth in the verse there. You have McCartney putting it down as it is, just pointed direct singing, and then you have Lennon and Harrison on this side, like with those lighter harmonies, which sounds absolutely gorgeous in here. I've got to admit it's getting better, a little better all the time. I have to admit it's getting better. It's getting better since you've been mine. So I like this positivity, this happy, driven, and positively focused message and motivation. It's not getting better quick, but little by little, step by step, there is progress being made here. And he says, I'm doing the best I can. You used to be an angry young man, me hiding, me head in the sand. You gave me the word, I finally heard, I'm doing the best I can. I've got to admit it's getting better. I've got to admit it's getting better. It's getting better all the time. I used to be cruel to my woman. I beat her and kept her apart from the things that she loved. Man, I was mean, but I'm changing my scene, and I'm doing the best that I can. So I like that idea of self-improvement, even from the most vile things, changing and admitting openly and honestly to others, to yourself, that you're changing, and you're changing for the better. So things are getting better little by little. Sometimes it takes time. And looking at the Wikipedia page for that specific line about being cruel to my woman, it says Lennon admitted that he had done things in relationships in the past that he was not proud of. So I think that, once again, that's a very honest way of putting that out there and actually working on yourself. By the way, it seems dark in this corner. I'm looking on the screen. You guys probably can't even see like the album cover very good. It's because I'm trying to make sure you guys can see like the Christmas lights I got, and I'm trying to. It's the lighting. I'm not a professional videographer. But hold on, now I don't want you to see the light. Okay, I mean, you guys have seen the album cover. Hold on, it's not even like. Is this better? That's worse. I don't want you to see the light. You know what? That'll have to do. All right, anyways. Let's move on to the next track here, which is Fixing a Hole. Let us proceed. Harpsichord.
I'm fixing a hole where the rain gets in and stops my mind.
Effect.
Hey, hey, hey. Mind from wandering where it will go.
I really like Harrison's guitar on this one. I like the little opening with the harpsichord. That was a nice way of setting stage. I like how each track has a distinct flavor and style to it. It just shows how diverse the Beatles were in their sound. And within a record like this, like within one side of the record, we're already getting so many different sounds. And honestly, if you were to look at that album cover without any concept of the band, who they were, not having heard their music, I think that you would look at the album cover, and just because of how many different figures are on there, the colors that are on there, the vibrancy of it, I would think you would know you're getting into some sort of almost like a variety show. Like you're getting into some music that's going to have a little bit of everything for everybody. McCartney is once again singing beautifully here. I really love that part where the guitar comes in and then McCartney harmonizes with it. Da, 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 da. It's almost like a little bit of a guitar rainfall that comes in on the track, and I thought that that was really nice. Ringo is very steady in his groove on this one. McCartney filling in the spaces in the music with some really nice bass fills as well. There's a little bit of a guitar solo that comes in. It has a little bit of a burn to it, and I believe that that is Harrison also performing that guitar solo in there. I like that. It was like a little short one, but it makes a certain kind of impact in the music. So every single, like, kind of taking the whole album to consideration, every single one of the tracks on this album is like short, like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or whatever, right? They don't really extend too much past that. How much are they packing in within such a short amount of time? It's just like perfect, perfect, perfect. They're just striking gold every single time they hit that rock. And I mean, obviously that shows how important and how meaningful they were in the history of music in itself. But this sounds just as good today as I'm sure it did in 1967 itself. And I like the lyrics too, as well. I'm fixing a hole where the rain gets in and stops my mind from wandering where it will go. Such a simple and, in my opinion, profound statement. Okay, yeah, fixing a hole. Easy. No big deal. I'm fixing a hole where the rain gets in. You think of a house, and especially down here in Florida, hurricanes, roofs blow off all the time, and it's a thing, yeah. So I'm fixing a hole where the rain gets in and stops my mind from wandering. So we're stopping a hole to prevent outside influence, but also to keep my mind from wandering. I'm filling the cracks that ran through the door and kept my mind from wandering where it will go. And it really doesn't matter if I'm wrong or if I'm right. Where I belong, I'm right. Where I belong. So as long as he keeps himself, as long as he knows where he belongs, he's going to be okay. And it really doesn't matter if I'm wrong, I'm right. Where I belong, I'm right. See the people standing there who disagree and never win and wonder why they don't get in my door. Saying, you're not going to come in my door with that attitude. I'm not getting in my mind. I'm painting the room in a colorful way. And when my mind is wandering, there I will go. And it really doesn't matter if I'm wrong. I'm right where I belong. No matter what, he's right where he belongs. No matter what's trying to get in, what's trying to get out, he's where he belongs. I'm taking the time for a number of things that weren't important yesterday. And I still go, ooh, 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 ah. So I like how he's still focusing, at least it seems, on self-care, on taking care of himself and his metaphorical house, himself, his body, his soul, his spirit, him. In a 1968 interview, McCartney said that the song was about a hole in the road where the rain gets in. A good old analogy. The hole in your makeup which lets the rain in and makes or stops your mind from going where it will. He went on to say that the following lines were about fans who hung around outside his home day and night and whose actions he found off-putting. See the people standing there who disagree and never win. Wonder why they don't get in my door. So you got a little bit of a stalker situation, a fanatic, if you will. Some fans assumed the song was about heroin due to the drug slang fixing a hole. But McCartney later said that the song was an ode to pot. Oh, well, like potholes. That's actually really funny. I just kind of got that. In his 2021 book, The Lyrics, McCartney revealed that the most important influence for the song was a little blue hole he saw while under the influence of LSD. According to McCartney, the most important influence here was not even the metaphysical idea of a hole, but this absolutely physical phenomenon, something that first appeared when I took acid. I still see it occasionally, and I know exactly what it is. I know exactly what size it is. So this hole just appeared when he was tripping out. There's this little blue hole, and you know he still sees it occasionally, which is very interesting. Kind of want to know what's in the hole, if I'm being honest. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on into the next track here on the album. That will be She's Leaving Home. Where's she going? I know where she's not. Did I press? Oh, I pressed the wrong. I did. I knew I was going to do it at some point in the video. I knew I was going to do it at some point in the video instead of pressing just down, like to start where we left off. I went back to the beginning of the album. I'm going to have to make an edit now. So give me a second. It actually wasn't too bad me finding my spot again. So now we're moving on to the next track, She's Leaving Home. Let's go. Love the little violin.
Silently closing her bedroom door, leaving the note that she hoped above the stairs. She breaks down and cries to her husband is far away.
She's gone. She's out. She's out of there. She said, I'm out. Bye. I got a date. Okay, so once again, I made the point before, but I have to make it again. The variety that we're getting on this album. So here, the string arrangements, you're not expecting them. At least I wasn't expecting them. And when they came in, they just completely transform the atmosphere and the scope of this album. They actually, it's like they're changing the light. Kind of how like I'm trying to adjust my light to get a different shade, get the light in different areas. On my end, it's not quite working the way I wanted it to, but for the Beatles, it is working magnificently because the strings, especially that violin, adds such a unique characteristic into the music, like I said, filled with elegance and grace and a certain kind of drama that you expect, and you know that the Beatles have excelled in what they're doing. I love how at certain moments in the actual music, like at one point when I think they were mentioned like that she's leaving, basically. At one point in there, I can't remember exactly the line, but there's a line in there that strikes some sort of chord, and you hear the violin play very sharply and a little bit more up-tempo. So it's those little moments in the songwriting process that make this one of those tracks that like last, you know? And while like I said, I know that on this album there's, you know, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, you know, forgetting the name now, Day in the Life, but this track, for example, I've never heard it recommended. I've never like seen any sort of hubbub about it, as well as a lot of the other tracks here on the album. And I wonder, is that because of the strength of the album and the mythology of the album is just so strong that, you know, of course, it's not about the individual tracks so much. It's more about the album as an important stone and milestone here. Which obviously, yes, that is true, no matter what. But when you're looking at the songs individually, like each composition, there's just so much thought into each one. There's so much effort and just magic that goes into each one that it's really amazing. Obviously, as the album as a whole, the way it's supposed to be taken in, duh. But when you look at it like with a magnifying glass, so to speak, you really get a lot out of it. So looking at this track, it says McCartney wrote the song and sang the verse, and Lennon wrote the chorus, which they sang together, which they sound gorgeous together. Neither George Harrison nor Ringo Starr was involved in the recording. The song's instrumental background was performed entirely by a small string orchestra by Mike, or arranged by Mike Leander. All right, so that's interesting because I actually thought that might have been like, I don't know, I guess Harrison's guitar maybe, or someone, not Harrison, but I guess Lennon because he's the only one here. I thought that might have been guitar played in the beginning, but I guess that's actually going to be harp, played by Sheila Bromberg, actually there. So that's actually really cool, the way that this track came about. Now I wonder why the other two weren't involved in the recording process of this. I wonder, like, how did they feel about that? Were the other two members that were left out okay with that? Was there a reason specifically? Let's see if we can find that in here. It says here that McCartney was inspired by a story on the front page of the Daily Mirror about a girl named Melanie Coe. Although McCartney, sorry, I keep on saying that. Although McCartney invented most of the content in the song, Coe, who was 17 at the time, has said that most of it was accurate. In actuality, Coe left with her boyfriend, a croupier. She did not meet a man from the motor trade, although her boyfriend previously had been in that train. She left in the afternoon while her parents were at work, while the girl in the song leaves early in the morning. So that's actually really interesting. And it says that Coe was found 10 days later because she had let it slip where her boyfriend worked. When she returned home, she was pregnant and had an abortion. Well, there you go. The recording of the track here, it said the day before McCartney wanted to work on the song's score, he learned that George Martin, who usually handled the Beatles string arrangements, was not available. Mark. I keep on messing up McCartney's name, and I don't really know why, so I apologize for that. McCartney contacted Mike Leander, who did it in Martin's place. This was the first time a Beatles song was not arranged by Martin. It says that Martin, though hurt by this, produced the song and conducted the string section. So at least he conducted it, even if he didn't actually write the arrangement itself. So that's interesting. That's interesting. There's a little bit of a loyalty issue in some ways there. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on into the final track here on this particular side of the album. Like I said, I'm going to listen to the other side tomorrow, but like I said, for you guys, I might either combine it or I'll keep them as two separate sides. I don't quite know what I'll do. You'll kind of know. Obviously, when this video comes out, you'll know by the title of it. And I think my cat wants to come in for food. Is she meowing at the door?
Yeah. What's wrong, Sake?
You guys hear her? She's so loud. I'm trying to record, and she just. Meow.
What's wrong, baby?
She's so spoiled. Put her on camera.
Hi, guys.
She's not really a cuddly cat. She doesn't like to be picked up.
She was crying in front of the door, and every time I got up, she ran to the door like, can I go in now? Can I go in now? Look,
It's because if I record for like a little bit too long, she's like, okay, I need to get in my room now.
Yes.
I need to get my makeup on. I need to eat. Even though she acts like she doesn't have food around.
She's done.
She's
Okay.
done.
See you later.
Hey, bye.
Thanks for the snack.
Anytime.
See you
Anytime.
later. She just ran away.
Yeah, now she's done. So easy to please. All right, so let's move on to the final track here on the album, for this side of the album, I should say, which is going to be Being for the benefit of Mr. Kite. Who is Mr. Kite? I don't know, but he can probably fly it.
The Hendersons will all be there. Later, Pablo Bank is there. What a scene.
Oh, okay. That's the first side of the album. Mr. Kite. Well, Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds is definitely like a psychedelic pop masterpiece. This is taking LSD and going to the circus and just don't follow those pink elephants. Whatever you do, don't follow the pink elephants. How interesting are those really, really chaotic parts? Like, for example, the very ending. Because you have the organ, you have, I don't know exactly what it is, but you have some backwards sounds in there as well. There's just a lot. That's a dense song. That's a song I would have to listen to again to even catch all the sounds that are going in there, or on in there. And that's one thing that I think is so cool when it comes to the Beatles. They get so many instruments into their productions. They get so many different sounds. Even if it's for just a brief and small moment and a fleeting moment, they get it in there, it does its job, and then it's back out again. The singing, I love that swing again in the singing. It also sounds a little bit plaintive, a little bit mysterious. Like there's something slightly dystopian about it. And I mean like slightly, you know? There's just that undercurrent of uneasiness. There's something uncanny about the music, which obviously the way that all those sounds swirl together in the midpoint and the end is obviously like uncanny, but it's so wonderfully melodic at the same time. They're kind of playing around with this almost pseudo dissonance, I would say, on this track, but the way that they do it is just, I think, masterful on here. It says most of the lyrics came from a 19th century circus poster for Pablo Fonque's Circus Royal appearance at Rockdale. It was one of 3 songs from the album that was banned, supposedly because the phrase Henry the Horse combined 2 words that were individually known as slang for heroin. It was banned because the phrase Henry the Horse combined 2 words that were individually known for slang for heroin. That's interesting. Lennon denied that the song had anything to do with heroin. Okay, so that's really interesting that the lyrics for this particular track are directly from a poster for a circus. Now, taking that as inspiration, which is one aspect that is just incredibly creative, taking that, yes, taking the poster and using that for lyrics, that's one step of creativity. But then to actually come up with the music around it and for the music to sound this good, and whose hands would you trust this in? The Beatles. They come up with the greatest way of putting this to music. Like I said, it's incredibly fun, very bouncy, immediately puts you in a circus mentality, especially with the organ and those kind of fun, tricky sounds. But then they start twisting it and manipulating it in their own special way. It says the song's lyrics detail the evening's program. The band was to begin playing while Mr. Kite would perform, flying through the ring. Meanwhile, Mr. Henderson would execute somersaults, perform on the trampoline, etc., etc., etc. Being for the benefit of Mr. Kite is credited to Lennon McCartney, but Lennon said he had written it entirely by himself. It says it's one of the most musically complex songs on the album. That's for sure. With overdubs on the 20th of February and the main track put down on the 17th of February. And then harmonica on the 28th. Like, there's stuff being added like the next few days on this track, just overall. Lennon wanted the track to have a carnival atmosphere and told producer George Martin that he wanted to smell the sawdust on the floor. That is just so interesting the way that this happens. In the middle, multiple recordings of fairground organs and calliope music are spliced together. That is just so cool how they put all this up together. They achieved this by playing the Hammond organ and speeding it up. But like I said, there's some backwards sounds at the end, so I'm trying to find where that's mentioned because there's just a lot of interesting stuff happening here. Although Lennon once said that the song was one he wasn't that proud of, and I was just going through the motions, in 1980 he described it as pure, like a painting, a pure watercolor. Which is just incredible the way that they did all that. There is Mellotron actually in here as well. Glockenspiel, tape loops. That's going to be your backward sounds probably. That's performed and done by Jeff Emmerich. That's crazy. Looking at the lyrics here, we won't go over all of them since it's actually a poster. For the benefit of Mr. Kite, there will be a show tonight on Trampoline. The Hendersons will all be there. Late of Pablo Fonque's fair. What a scene. I'm probably mispronouncing Pablo's name, by the way. Over men and horses, hoops and garters, lastly through a hogshed of real fire. Not that fake fire. This one's real. In his way, Mr. K will challenge the world. And then it just goes on in describing like they said, the program from this particular show. So, obviously this album has been heralded as one of the greatest albums of all time, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can tell you from a first listen of just going through the first side of it, I get it. Like, it makes a ton of sense as we started going on this journey here. I was trying to hold up some of the stuff for you in the beginning. I've kind of showed you already, I guess, through the stuff, but if there's anything else, I'll show you on the next video, of which I will be recording tomorrow. But for now, hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Of course, I'll just end this video like normal, just in case I, don't splice them together. Please, if you enjoyed listening to the reaction with me, please, 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 at least like the video. You can subscribe if you like as well. If you enjoy what I do and you want to help me monetarily and financially, you can support me on Patreon. Links in the description below for as little as $2 a month. And you can follow me on Twitter as well. I'm over there occasionally. But otherwise, I hope that you guys enjoyed the music. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Have a lovely one, guys. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. And I'll see you all later. Bye. Hello again and welcome back everyone to side 2 of our album listen of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, The Beatles. We're moving on to the second side here. Hope you enjoyed listening to the first side alongside me. It has been, I don't know, not 24 hours exactly, but I don't know, 12 hours since we last listened to side 1. I've already flipped it over to side 2 here. I've reset everything back up for the day, for the session, so I hope that you guys are looking forward to listening to side 2 alongside with me, because side 1 was killing it. Was really, really good, so I'm excited to get back into the album here just a little bit later. So side 2 is going to be the tracks Within You, Without Me, When I'm 64, Lovely Rita, Good Morning, Good Morning, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band Reprise, and then A Day in the Life, that one, which I have heard. The rest I have not. So let's go ahead and get into it without much further ado. I'm going to have to readjust the volume levels. I already know when the music starts. So if the music doesn't start off perfectly volume-wise and everything, don't worry. I'm gonna mess with that. But for now, let's go ahead and get it started, guys. I know I'm going to have to adjust this a little bit. Just give me a little bit. First track, Within You, Without Me. Or Without You. Within You, Without You, by the way. I guess I should make sure the needle goes down, huh? That'd probably be a good thing.
And the people who hide them try to realize it's
That's
all
awesome.
within yourself now.
God, what a, hold on. We'll get back to it. What a mystical way to open up the second side of the album. You turn over the record and this is what you're greeted with. This mystical calling, almost an East meets West kind of sound that we have. Obviously the Indian sounds, the tambura, the sitar, I'm forgetting what it is now, the tabla as well, with just this beautiful mystical singing on top of it. But then you have those strings that come in that I'm imagining is kind of like that Western side, right? Like that Western music coming in and meeting in the middle. Of course, Harrison bringing these sounds to life here. But it's really cool how all of that works together. And the sound, that droning sound from the tambura, and like, God, it's just so beautiful. I love Indian music. I love the sound of this. I love the instrumentation. Tabla is one of my favorite instruments. So when you're hearing that boom, boom, that's so wonderful to me. Now, I know that Harrison did spend some time in India. I know that was like one of the things, like the major things, and kind of like one of the slight, at least, I don't know. This is all like very cursory knowledge, like turning points in Harrison's thinking, in the music that he brought to the band. And I see that there's no other Beatles besides Harrison playing in this track, which I think is really interesting. Now, I know that when he went to India, I don't remember his name, but I know he studied with, was it Ravi? I think that's the name. And I may be wrong, but isn't that Nora Jones' father? I think, if I'm getting my connections right, but I really could be completely wrong in all of what I just said. But I think I'm close, if not kind of right. Now, looking at the lyrics, we also take a very, very spiritual depth when we see that. We were talking about the space between us all, and the people who hide themselves behind a wall of illusion never glimpse the truth, then it's far too late when they pass away. So what I take the meaning of that is just explaining what he and the other person, I'll have to get the name, but I think it's Ravi, what him and Ravi were discussing. what happened in their conversations, and that's what he's relaying to us. He's kind of bringing back this knowledge over to the Western world, if you will. We were talking about the love we could share when we find it to try our best to hold it there with our love. With our love, we could save the world if they only knew. Try to realize it's all within yourself. No one else can make you change. And to see you're really only very small and life flows on within you and without you. I also like the song title and, of course, the way that line is said. Life flows on within you. Like, yes, life literally within you. But it also flows on without you. No matter what, life and time continues on and moves forward. But still, with the time and life you have within yourself, you have to use it. Even though on an outwardly scale, it will continue to move on. I just really like that and the way that that's written. Because the title you could, before listening to the song, you could look at the title of the track and say, it's a cool way of saying within, without. Like, it makes sense in a kind of opposite level. But the lyrics bring a lot more of a deeper meaning to everything here. When you've seen beyond yourself, then you may find peace of mind is waiting there. But you have to look beyond yourself to find that. And the time will come when you see we're all one, and life flows on within you and without you. And then you have the sounds of the children laughter there. I think that this was an excellent song. I would be really, really curious to know how the mainstream heard this song and what they thought of it. Because in my opinion, what I would imagine would have happened is perhaps they would have heard these wondrous sounds and these sounds that they had never heard before. But I would wager to guess that those who were familiar with the Beatles and their work, when they heard this song and this sound, it probably grew a deep interest, probably in India and Hinduism, which I believe that this is also kind of reflective of. It says that the song was Harrison's only composition on the album, although his endorsement of Indian culture was further reflected in the inclusion of yogis, such as Paramahansa Yogananda, among the crowd depicted on the album's cover. That makes sense. It says here that this song presented Indian classical music to a new audience in the West and contributed to the genre's peak in international popularity. That's great. The song has traditionally received a varied response from music critics, some of who find it lackluster and pretentious, while others admire its musical authenticity and consider its message to be the most meaningful. I don't quite understand. Maybe it's just me, and I want to hear, of course, your opinions, but I don't really see how this track could be lackluster. What were critics expecting? Because this is kind of mind-blowing. This is progressing and trying something new and bringing it to, like they say, like a Western audience. Taking something and honoring it, honoring the traditions, honoring the culture, but bringing it with a little bit of a different kind of kick and a different kind of spice. I just don't see how this kind of track would be considered lackluster or pretentious in any way. I don't see that, to be honest, at all. It says that this song was Harrison's second composition to be explicitly influenced by Indian classical music after Love You Too, which featured sitar, tabla, and tambura. And this is the name I was looking for. Harrison had continued to look outside his role as the band's guitarist, further immersing himself in studying the sitar, partly under the tutelage of sitarist Ravi Shankar. All right, and I'm pretty sure that that's Nora Jones' father, right? I'm clicking on his Wikipedia page, and I'm just trying to see. I think, yes, it is. All right, see? Sometimes I'm right. Not all the time, but sometimes. It says, Within You, Without You is the first of Harrison's many songs to include Hindu spiritual concepts in the lyrics as well. Which, I mean, I'm not familiar with Hinduism really much at all, although I do really love the sounds that are going on in this particular track. And then looking at some of the facts about the recording process on this one, it says that the session was attended by Lennon, artists Peter Blake and John Barham, English classical pianists and students of Shankar, who shared Harrison's desire to promote Indian music to Western audiences there. McDonough describes the song as stylistically the most distant departure from the staple Beatles sound in their discography. And I guess when they were recording the basic track for this specific track, it says the participants sat on a carpet in the studio, which was decorated with Indian tapestries on the walls, with the lights turned low and incense burning. Harrison and Absinal each played a tambura, while the Indian musicians contributed on on tabla, dilaruba, and tambura. That's such a cool, like, you have to actually make the studio, you have to give the studio its own personality, you have to give it its own atmosphere, and then you can really dive into the music and allow it to really feel spirited inside an atmosphere like that. So I like how they actually changed the studio and decorated it and completely changed the actual atmosphere of it. I think that this is an absolutely wonderful song, beautiful instrumentation. That's awesome. I think that's great. So let's go ahead and move on to the next track here on the album, which is going to be When I'm 64. Let's go. This sounds like Maxwell
When I
Silverhammer.
get up,
Nice.
mending a fuse. When your lights have gone, will you still feed me when I'm 64? Woo.
Okay, first of all, that reminded me immediately of Maxwell's Silverhammer. It has that certain jolly trot, right? Dun, dun, da, 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 dun, dun, da, 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 da. It has that almost not nursery rhyme-ish kind of swing to it, but a little bit of a childish swing to it. And I obviously mean that with a compliment towards the sound of the song. But it is an innocent kind of love song. Like, you love me now, will you love me when I'm 64? When, you know, I think that it's wonderfully sung by McCartney. Once again, those harmonies that come up in that pre-chorus there. There's just the layering, you know, is so beautifully done. It reminds me a little bit of the Beach Boys, even though the Beatles don't utilize that so much or I should say as much as the Beach Boys do. But when they do it, God, does it sound really fantastic as well. Even though the Beach Boys, like, that's like kind of one of their strongest suits rather. But let's not focus on the Beach Boys for now. The clarinets sound really good as well. I like the snappy, poppy drum. It's just like one of those nice kind of swings that puts you in a really happy mood, and all the melodies. Like, it's very sing-songy. Also, is what I'm kind of trying to get at with it. Like, it just sounds like a very jolly, happy, innocent kind of song. I like that. Looking at the lyrics on this one. When I get older, losing my hair, many years from now, will you still be sending me a Valentine, birthday greetings, bottle of wine? If I'd been out till 2:45, would you lock the door? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? You'll be older too, and if you say the word, I could stay with you. So he's willing, no matter what, to stay with this person for as long as they live. He just wants that same feeling reciprocated. I could be handy mending a fuse when your lights have gone. You can knit a sweater by the fireside. Sunday mornings go for a ride. Doing the garden, digging the weeds. Who could ask for more? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? Now, I like the lines where he says, I could be handy mending a fuse when your lights have gone. Of course, that could be literal, like I could change the light bulb for you. I can do some handiwork around the house still. I'm still able to do things. But it could also be mental faculties. As you're getting older, you may start to forget things, you may start to lose things, and that kind of, situation. So he says, I could still be handy mending a fuse when your lights have gone. When the lights in your mind in your upstairs attic, so to speak, are starting to flicker a little bit. Like, no matter what, I'm going to take care of you. So I just really like that line. At least that's what I'm kind of thinking. That's the meaning I get out of it. Every summer we can rent a cottage in the Isle of Wight. If it's not too dear, we shall scrimp and save. Grandchildren on your knee, Vera, Chuck, and Dave. So I like to, thinking about the children, thinking about life, and going actually spending time relaxing. We'll save for it. It may not be something we can do right away, but we'll save for it. We'll look forward to it. There's still things to look forward to, no matter our age. Send me a postcard, drop me a line, stating point of view, indicate precisely what you mean to say. You're sincerely wasting away. Give me your answer. Fill in a form. Mine forevermore. Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? Just give me an answer. Tell me something. Don't leave me here on the line. You got to tell me something. Looking at the facts for this song here, it says the song was recorded in a key different from the final recording. It was sped up at the request of McCartney to make his voice sound younger. It features a trio of clarinets as well. It says that McCartney wrote the melody to this song around age 14. Well, that's interesting, huh? McCartney recalled, rock and roll was about to happen that year and it was about to break. so I was still a little cabaret minded. He said, I wrote a lot of stuff thinking I was going to end up in cabaret, not realizing that rock and roll was particularly going to happen. When I was 14, there wasn't much of a clue that it was going to happen. I think that's really interesting. How long ago he wrote the melody for the song and how he kept that melody written down in his heart, in his head. He just had that melody in his mind to use at some point, and obviously, it got used here, and it sounds really good. So I think that's really cool. I kind of held that the whole time. It says on the 21st of December, session musicians Robert Burns, Henry McKenzie, and Frank Wrighty overdubbed 2 clarinets and a bass clarinet onto take 4. Emmerich later explained the clarinets on that track became a very personal sound for me. I recorded them so far forward that they became one of the main focal points, which, yes, they are very upfront, if you will, in the production. On the 30th of December, unsatisfied with all these attempts, McCartney suggested speeding up the track to raise it by around a semitone from its original key of C major to D major. Martin remembers that McCartney suggested this change to make his voice sound younger. He says, I wanted to appear younger, but that was just to make it more rooty-tooty. More rooty-tooty. That's a good word. Just lift the key because it was starting to sound turgid. And so they sped up the music just a little bit. And he says that the rich timbres of the clarinet give the mix a fuller, fatter sound than many of the other tracks here on the album. Hey, if that's what it takes to make your voice sound just a little bit younger, speed me up a little bit. Let's move on to the next track here, which is going to be Lovely Rita. Let me pop that back down. Oh, well done. Nice kind of folky acoustic.
And Rita hated, took her home, I nearly made it, sitting on the sofa with a sister or two.
Okay. The ending of that track. Did anyone else catch the ending of that track and how it so organically flowed off of that last chorus and then just began to shift? The piano got a little bit darker, a little bit more soulful, just dun 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 dun, and then there's some like swirling kind of whispers and vocals there, and then the whole mood of the track just shifted. Can I tell you, that track is what, 2 minutes and 42 seconds long. I said it on side 1, but the Beatles know how to take a song and take you on an actual journey. Whether the song is verse, chorus, or it's verse, verse, chorus, whatever their structure is in particular to the track, they take you on such an interesting journey. In this track, they have, I think it's verse, chorus, and then the end. I'm pretty sure it is. Looks like it. But the ending of the song is actually where things kind of start to get a little bit interesting. But before you know it, it fades out. Now, this is just me kind of basing my thoughts off of this, but I know that Sgt. Pepper's is one of those albums that was at least, considered part of the advent of progressive rock. Could it be because of moments like this where you could hear them shift the music, going somewhere else with it, but they let that be the outro? Whereas perhaps going into progressive rock, that would just be a transition into another section. Of course, you can look at the album as a whole and the listening to it as the whole and just kind of take it that way, and you could see it as, a little bit of a progressive sound. Obviously, yes, it is. But for modern day or even ones after this, to do that within one song, whether it's a 5-minute song, 10-minute song, etc., they must have heard the Beatles doing this and said, "Ooh," and just kind of stewed on it. That is so interesting how they did that there. And I'm really fascinated with that ending, because the rest of the song obviously sounded great, but it's that ending that I really, really enjoyed. And then there's another sound within this, which, by the way, this song also has a very jolly trot. And I like how within the chorus, one thing I've noticed that the Beatles do is that the rest of the band, the group, will come in with the harmonies to kind of elevate everything on the second half of that chorus. So the music is constantly elevating itself from the verse, of course, at a certain standard, pre-chorus, the chorus goes here, but then those harmonies and the way the music opens up takes you right up above the clouds, and then we drop back down, and then, it's a perfect pop structure that obviously the band perfected, really. Now, there's a sound in there that I think is guitar, because you kind of hear it come like it comes up, but I don't know if it actually is or not. And also, I really like the guitar in the beginning of this track, but I'm not sure what that sound is. I think it's guitar, but knowing the Beatles, it could be something else. Let's see if we can find out what it is and how we're talking about this lovely meter maid before she finds them and gets their vehicles towed. It says, written and sung by McCartney. It is about a meter maid and the narrator's affections for her. Which, going back to the lyrics, let's read that first because I love a certain line in here. Lovely Rita, meter maid, nothing can come between us. When it gets dark, I tow your heart away. I love that line. When it gets dark, I tow your heart away. You may tow my car, but I'm going to tow your heart. I'm going to steal your heart. That's awesome. Standing by a parking meter when I catch a glimpse of Rita filling in a ticket in her little white book. In a cap, she looked much older, and the bag across her shoulder made her look like a little like a military man. Lovely Rita, meter maid, may I inquire discreetly, when are you free to take some tea with me, Rita? And then we get a really nice piano solo in there as well. And that's what I mean, like, even the piano solo is very short. I would have kind of expected, like, at least double the time on that piano solo, but no. They give you a taste, they give you a sample, and then you're out of there. They provide these euphoric and yet fleeting moments in their music, which keeps you coming back for more and more and more. It's just so easily digestible. Took her out and tried to win her, had a laugh and over dinner. Told her I would really like to see her again, got the bill, and Rita paid. Well, she probably got the money that she made and the money she collected towing his car. Took her home, I nearly made it, sitting on the sofa with a sister or two. And then, oh lovely Rita, meter maid, where would I be without you? Give us a wink and make me think of you. That's hilarious. I love the way the lyrics are written, falling in love with this meter maid. And then it says that McCartney wrote the song, of course, about a meter maid who he is speculated to have been named Meta Davies, who gave him a parking ticket outside of the recording studio where most of Sgt. Pepper was recorded. Can you imagine recording one of the greatest albums of all time? Of course, not known yet because it was still being recorded, but and then you walk outside, you illegally parked or something happened, and you got a ticket on your car. That's hilarious. Looking at some more information about this track, it says and about that situation, instead of becoming angry, he accepted it with good grace and expressed his feelings in song. When asked why he called and named her Rita, McCartney replied, well, she looked like Rita to me. I think that's absolutely hilarious. It's like I always say, inspiration can come from anywhere. So let's go ahead and move ourselves on into the next track here, which is going to be Good Morning, Good Morning. Let's pop that back down.
Nothing to say, but what a day. How's your boy been? Nothing has
And the meter
changed,
keeps
it's
switching.
still the same. I've got nothing.
That's really unique. Good Morning. It's going to the next track. Good Morning. Okay. That, first of all, the sound is absolutely heavy in that one. Production-wise, especially drum-wise, Ringo is just mashing and smashing the kit. His kicks, he's putting in some bum, bum, bum. He's putting footwork in this one. And of course, the tempo, ba, ba, ba. This one is really dizzying in the greatest way. It's like being sucker punched, okay? The horn section is especially magnificent, very much up front, pushing the band along. Ringo. I love the way that he plays on this one. I love how dynamic his playing is and how interesting it is. One other thing that I kind of noticed is that the meter of the song is kind of off. I want to say, and I wasn't counting exactly, so don't quote me on this, part of it is almost like in, I don't know, 10-4 or 10-8, I don't know, something like that, like the first verse, then it switches and goes into, I don't know, something else. I don't know what, but the meter of the song and the rhythm keeps on changing in this one. And then it really effortlessly switches back into the good morning, good morning, good. And then within that, it changes again. So it's like the verse, or let's put it like this. The lyrics and the singing are on line 1. The music is below on line 2. And it's like they start offbeat, then they switch, and then they like change over here, and then it comes back here, and then before you know it, it goes back to its original position. So it's like the music and the singing is off center, but they keep on rotating, and I don't know. There's something really interesting about that, and I do not know the technical know-how to really like dive into it. I can just tell you that there's something strange going on. That's all I can tell you. There's something weird going on, and then you have that really scratchy, fizzy kind of guitar that comes in about a halfway through. That's really interesting. Like I said, this is like a sonic sucker punch, because I expected the song "Good Morning" to "Good Morning" to be like a peaceful awakening, like something light, you know, like a you know that morning song, that classical piece of music that's always like mornings. This is a bum bum. Let's get into the lyrics on this one. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Nothing to do to save his life, call his wife in. Nothing to say, but what a day, how's your boy been? Nothing to do, it's up to you, I've got nothing to say, but it's okay. Going to work, don't want to go. Feeling low down, heading for home, you start to roam, then you're in town. Everyone knows there's nothing doing. Everything is closed, it's like a ruin. Everyone you see is half asleep, and you're on your own, you're in the street. After a while, you start to smile, now you feel cool. Then you decide to take a walk by the old school. Nothing has changed, it's still the same, I've got nothing to say, but it's okay. So, he's in this boring place, with his boring life, and there's like no excitement going on. Now the question is, what does good morning have to do with that? People running around, it's 5 o'clock, everywhere in town it's getting dark. Everyone you see is full of life, it's time for tea and meet the wife. Somebody needs to know the time, glad that I'm here. Watching the skirts, you start to flirt, now you're in gear. Go to a show, you hope she goes. I've got nothing to say, but it's okay. And then at the end, we say Guten Morgen, which is German for good morning. And I only know that because of my Swiss friends. That's the only reason I know that. So what does good morning have to do with, I guess, the boredom of life? Is he saying it's a good morning even though it's boring? At least like there's still life going on, there's still things happening, so even if he's bored, it's a good morning? Is he saying that people passingly may say good morning, like to be friendly and to greet each other, but he's just like bored of it? I don't know. Let's see if we can find out a little bit more about this one. It says that it describes the boredom and unsatisfaction of being a normal person living a normal life. Strangely, this actually foreshadows Lennon's house husband period of the mid-70s. And then, interestingly enough, it says that this song was inspired by an old cornflakes advertisement, which featured a crowing rooster similar to the one that opens the track. Well, that is interesting. I'm going to repeat it again. I guess you can get inspiration from anything, can't you? Lennon himself was critical of the track. He says, it's a throwaway, a piece of garbage. I always thought that. He once said, I always had the TV on very low in the background when I was writing, and it came over, and then I wrote this song. Sometimes artist hates the song, and that's okay. He said, I hate that. He says it's a piece of garbage. That's a bit strong, huh? Now it says here, for the rhythm, which actually does have its own section for itself here on the song. The song is played at 117 beats per minute, has an unusual rhythmic feel, and uses different time signatures. Beats are played in groups of 2, 3, and 4, and time signature changes frequently. I know! Parts with 5/4 and 4/4 alternate with 3/4 transitions. Okay, so I was kind of close when I said, because I said 10/8, didn't I? 10/8, 5/4. You know what I mean. I was kind of close. So that's really interesting that it changes with those time signatures just in those 3 parts. Most of the song uses simple time, where the beats are divided into 2, but the middle 8 sections use compound time, where the beats are divided in triplets. I'm right here, and all that is just a little above my pay grade. Anyways, let's get back in. Oh, actually, before we go into the next track, the rapid 16th note bass drum fills were done with 2 bass drums, according to Beatles historian Mark Lewison. The length on the mono version of Good Morning is 2:35, where the stereo version runs to 241. Okay, so that is cool that they did bring in 2 bass drums. Because it makes sense that there's double bass there. That's what it sounds like, obviously. But I don't know like the history of double bass and like when it was first really utilized. But I do think that is cool that it was utilized here because it makes a lot of sense the way that Ringo's playing that there. Anyways, let's move on to the next track. We'll probably just let the last 2 play together. We're going to listen to the reprisal of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the first track, and then A Day in the Life, which we have heard, but we're going to listen to it again one more time to close out the album. Let's go. That's a rap song. What the heck?
Once again, Sergeant Pepper's
Okay, I lied. I want to talk about it super quick. Not a lot, because I know it's transitioning. We've heard the next song already, but we're going to close it up properly. So, obviously, I like how this goes back to the fictional band, and this is them playing out their show, right? They're done. We're out of here. We're done. Hope you enjoyed your time with us. I like how that closes out the show, but then like an actual live show, we walk the band off stage, but they're going to come back for an encore, which is going to be A Day in the Life. And the lyrics on this one, we hope you enjoyed the show. We're sorry it's time to go. We'd like to thank you once again. It's getting near the very end. And this one's a lot harder. It rocks. I love Ringo's drumming on this one. And I did see a quite interesting fact about this before we actually move into the last track here. I just saw this. It says in 1967, Jimi Hendrix played the song live, which was leased by Brian Epstein, the place that he played at, only 3 days after it had been released on record, with McCartney and Harrison in the audience. How absolutely crazy is that? 3 days after this was released, Jimi Hendrix is up on stage and he's covering the song. And they're in the audience watching that. To me, that must be absolutely mind-blowing as an artist to release an album, you're excited, and Jimi Hendrix, of course, just ups and covers it right away. I would love to know what they thought of the recording. Like, were they like shocked and impressed? Because I would imagine that they must have been. I would really like to know like what their thoughts were when they were in the audience and heard him perform this song, because that's absolutely crazy. Anyways, now we're going to go ahead and let it go into the last song of the album. We're going to move on into A Day in the Life. Thank you guys so much for being here as we finish it out. Let's go.
Well, I just had to laugh. The crowd of people turned away.
How awesome is that?
I read the news today, oh boy. I'd love to turn.
That is one of the best tracks, period, ever created in the world. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like I said, we've heard this one before. I've heard this one before, and it stands very, very, very tall to this day. I don't even know where to begin. I love the distressed orchestra buildup. I love how symphonic and chaotic it becomes as soon as it comes out of the sweetness of that chorus, and then it just scared me a little bit. That actually scared me. Is it done? Okay, it's done. That scared me a little bit. Okay, that was like a jump scare at the end. But it just totally distracted me. But I love how pleasant it begins. You know, with the verse. It's so pleasant. It's strolly. It's you know, it's just a nice little jog. Very peaceful. And then the chorus after the love to turn you. I love how shaky that is and how perfectly concentrated the singing is at that moment. And as those vocals begin to fade out, then the orchestra comes in. The orchestra comes in pretty standard at first. It sounds like they're kind of coming off like something very big, very overt. And then soon that orchestra begins to become mangled and disfigured. And then the first time, it drops off immediately. It doesn't go on too far. Then we go back into that piano jolly trot, moves along again, picks up very nicely, much more energetic the second time around. Ringo is just selling it. And then by the time that second orchestra comes in, the second time it comes in, then it really becomes mangled and disfigured to completion. And it becomes like horrifying, becomes distressful. It's just so cool how the band incorporated these, like a little bit of an avant-garde touch into the music. They could have just not experimented, not been adventurous, gone a very direct pop route, perhaps tread ground that they had already done before, and said, yeah, people will eat this up. They'll be very happy with it. We'll make a lot of money, and we make good pop songs. No doubt they did that, right? They made good pop songs. But the progressive nature of the band, the willingness to experiment, to try something new, to perhaps color outside of the lines, transforms what could have been a very standard pop tune into arguably one of the greatest tracks of modern music, period. And I just think that the way they do all that is absolutely stunning. Once again, just lending itself to the knowledge that the Beatles are one of the, if not the most influential band of modern day music. Now, looking at some of the information here, actually, let's look at the lyrics real quick. Like I said, we've gone over this song before, but just to look at it again. I read the news today, oh boy, about a lucky man who made the grade. And then though the news was rather sad, well, I just had to laugh. I saw the photograph. And this was apparently in reference to the death of Tara Brown, which inspired this line. It says that John Lennon famously reacted with laughter upon hearing the news of the unexpected loss of his uncle George, his mother Julia, and the original Beatle bassist Stuart Sutcliffe. It says, he didn't notice that the lights had changed. A crowd of people stood and stared. They'd never seen his face before. Nobody was really sure if he was the House of Lords. It says that Tara Brown's father, Dominic Brown, actually was in the House of Lords, the upper chamber of Parliament, which makes and passes laws of the UK. In a remarkable coincidence, Dominic Brown gained his seat from his father, who vacated it by dying in a car crash. Lennon is mixing up the identity of the deceased as if to point out we're all the same when we die, so what does it matter? How death will be the moot point, if you will, of life. I saw a film today, oh boy, the English army had just won the war, a crowd of people turned away, but I just had to look, having read the book. I'd love to turn you on. Then the alarm clock rings and we go into that da-da, da-da. Like, how many cool changes are there in this track? Woke up, fell out of bed, dragged a comb across my head, found my way downstairs and drank a cup, and looked up. I noticed I was late. Found my coat, grabbed my hat, made the bus in seconds flat, found my way upstairs and had to smoke, and somebody spoke, and I went into a dream. And then at that point, we spin ourselves back into that hallucinogenic, kind of very dreamy, psychedelic. It's very like wavy. It's so like vibrant and mysterious. It's just a really cool way that happens. Like, the transitions in here are oftentimes immediate and snappy, and they don't give you time to think. But because of the sections that come after that transition is so like interesting and diverse, it just keeps you waiting for the next part. And then we go back to actually the verse again. I read the news today, oh boy, 4,000 holes in Blackburn, Lancashire. And though the holes were rather small, they had to count them all. Now they know how many holes it takes to fill Albert Hall. This is just, it's just crazy. In the song's middle segment, McCartney recalls his younger years, which included riding the bus, smoking, and going to class. So like the normal things of life. Following the second crescendo, the song ends with one of the most famous chords in music history, played on several keyboards, that sustains for over 40 seconds, which we heard because it went on for a while. I let it keep going while I was talking, and then, of course, that little bit of laughter comes about afterwards there. It says that Paul and I, talking about John Lennon, were working on the song together. The way we wrote it, a lot of time, you'd write the good bit, the part that was easy, like I read the news today or whatever it was. Then when you got stuck or whenever it got hard, instead of carrying on, you just drop it. Then we would meet each other and I would sing half and he would be inspired to write the next bit, or vice versa. He was a bit shy about it because I think he thought it was already a good song. So we were doing it in his room with the piano. He said, should we do this? Yeah, let's do that. So I like how when they're writing the music themselves, if they got stuck at a part, they didn't like force it. They didn't push it just to try and get it done. They say, okay, we're stuck. All right, stop right there. We'll come back and work on it, at some other point. And I think that's a really smart way to approach the music instead of forcing it, because oftentimes if you force it, it's not going to be as good. It's not going to sound as inspired. It's not going to sound true to what you want out of it. So I like that approach there on that section. It says, McCartney said about the line, "I'd love to turn you on." This was the time of Tim Larry's turn on, tune in, drop out. And we wrote, "I'd love to turn you on." John and I gave each a knowing look. It's a drug song. You know that, don't you? George Martin, the Beatles producer, commented that he had always suspected that the line "found my way upstairs and had a smoke" was a drug reference, recalling how the Beatles would disappear and have a little puff, presumably of marijuana, but not in front of him. When Martin was doing his TV program on Pepper, McCartney recalled later he asked me, "Do you know what caused Pepper?" I said in one word, "Drugs. Pot." And George said, No, but you weren't on it all the time." Yes, we were. That's what it said. It says Sgt. Pepper was a drug album. I love the simplicity of the answer. Pot. No, but not the whole time, though. Yeah, we were. And then talking about the ending of the track. Following the final orchestral crescendo, the song ends with one of the most famous chords in music history. This chord was added during a session in February 22. Lennon, McCartney, Starr, and Evans shared 3 different pianos, with Martin on a harmonium, and all played an E major chord simultaneously. The chord was made to ring out for over 40 seconds by increasing the recording sound level as the vibration faded out. That makes sense. So as the sound was diminishing, they just continued to raise the volume so it wouldn't sound like it was diminishing so fast. And then it says, towards the end of the chord, the recording level was so high that listeners can hear the sounds of the studio, including rustling papers and a squeaking chair. That's actually really funny. It says, Jonathan Gould's commentary on A Day in the Life, he describes the final chord as a 40-second meditation on finality that leaves each member of the audience listening with a new kind of attention and awareness to the sound of nothing at all. And one of the first listeners to hear the completed recording was David Crosby. And he said, "Man, I was dish rag. I was floored. It took me several minutes to be able to talk after that." And I mean, yeah, I'm sure many of you were around at the time, but can you imagine hearing this album, 1967, you took this long journey, listening to all the different sounds that the Beatles came up with in this thing. And I mean, so completely different, so adventurous and progressive than perhaps what you heard before. And you're listening to this, and you get to that final last crescendo. The notes ring out, and it just continues to linger. Just continues to sit there in the music. You would be shocked. You would just be sitting there in silence and awe, just holding on to that feeling of the journey that you just heard. I can definitely 100% imagine that. And then I also see here that there was a radio ban on the song because of its supposed references to drugs. Here it says that the BBC announced it would not broadcast the song due to the line, "I'd love to turn you on," which, according to the corporation, advocated drug use. Other lyrics allegedly referred to drugs included, the upstairs line, "Finding the Dream." A spokesman for the BBC stated, "We have listened to this song over and over again, and we have decided that it appears to go just a little too far and could encourage a permissive attitude to drug taking." Well, I mean, if the Beatles are taking drugs and they're coming out with stuff like this, I mean, it might be. At the time, Lennon and McCartney denied that there were any drug references in the song and publicly complained about the band at a dinner party when they were celebrating the album's release. Lennon said that the song was simply about a crash and its victim and called the line in question the most innocent of phrases. And McCartney said this was the only one in the album written as a deliberate provocation. I'll stick that in your pipe moment. As he says, that's his words, not mine. That's really funny. And then I guess later on, McCartney confirmed that he had taken LSD when doing this album. And eventually the ban was lifted several years later in 1972. It was banned for a long time. That's a really long time that the song was banned. And I think it's really interesting, the idea about the, turning up the recording volume, because it's like if, let me turn my fan off really quick. It's basically the same idea as if I turned up my recording volume, I'll be really dead quiet. I'm gonna be dead quiet. You're probably gonna hear me breathe because it's gonna be so sensitive, but watch. And I only turned it up halfway. I didn't even turn it up. I turned it up just a little bit. You can probably hear outside and everything. You hear dogs barking, children playing. Guys, that is the end of the album, ending with A Day in the Life. Can I tell you immediately? It's let me not rush to it. But on a first listen, it sounds pretty perfect to me. I don't really think that there's a weak track on it. All of them serve a very unique purpose in the sound that the band are going for. All of them have a certain different style as well. From the psychedelic pop of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds to, A Day in the Life, which is very progressive pop. And then, of course, Within You, Without You, the Indian style with the Western strings, to the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club, which bring in this unique concept. There's just so much going on in this album. So I really hope that you enjoyed listening to it with me, because I enjoyed listening to it in the first place. Thank you once again for actually sending and gifting me the album as well, the actual record itself, which has been lovely to look at with all the different pictures and all the information that's in here as well. Guys, as I said before, I did this album as a quote-unquote holiday gift, Christmas gift. I wanted to do something that I figured and thought that most people would like, most people would be interested in, and what better way to celebrate than with this. So sincerely hope that you guys are having a wonderful holiday, a wonderful Christmas, whatever it may be. You may not be watching this on that day, probably not. You're probably watching this in the middle of summer. You're like, well, it's a good album, so no matter when. So whenever you're joining me here and listening to it, I hope that you enjoyed your time with it. Thank you so much for continuing to watch the channel and for being here with me. Hope you enjoyed the music. Hope you enjoyed me talking, because I did a lot of that. I'm thirsty now. But as always, before you go, after listening to this monumental album, please, please, please like the video. It helps me a lot here on the channel. It does a lot for me. If you're interested and if you'd like to, you can also support me on Patreon. If you like what I do, if you've been watching and you're able to, you can do that for as little as $2 a month. It helps me do more videos. It helps me in life, obviously. You can also follow me on Twitter. I post things there sometimes. Don't forget to check out some of my other channels I have down in the description below. But otherwise, hope you're having a wonderful day in your life. Thank you as always for being here. And I'll see you all later. Bye.